welcome to the GovX Show, a weekly look at my extensive collection of Indonesian shirts, assisted by a guest from the public sector. I'm James Smith, Content Director at GovX Digital. In this episode, we're going west to the land of my forefathers to talk to Sally Meecham, the Chair of the Centre for Digital Public Services Wales. Sally talks us through the research undertaken across devolved and local government in Wales to identify the needs of public sector stakeholders, audit the skill sets within government, and begin work to create a collaborative, consistent approach to service design. Let's find out why these are exciting times for the future of digital government in Wales. Sally, a very warm welcome to the GovX Show. How are you today?
I'm great, thank you. Really looking forward to our chat.
Very good. So it's obviously great to have you spend a bit of time with us today. You'll be very pleased to hear that I took a look at our delegate registrations for the conference this morning, and there's quite a stream of registrations for your session. So by the looks of it, our audience is looking forward to you just as much as I am.
Good. All right, that's probably my family.
Mine too, perhaps, but so clearly both got big families. But so before we dive into your career, I thought it might be sort of nice for our audience to get a better feel for, I suppose, some of your interests outside of the world of work. What do you like to do in your spare time?
Well, I'm really fortunate. I moved to Wales about 6.5 years ago, and we're semi-rural. We're kind of in between Llanelli and Swansea and Carmarthen and Brecon and Gower. We're surrounded by really beautiful places, and we spoke before about the great market we have in Swansea and the many opportunities to buy cockles at that market. So I have walking. I just get the boots on and just go exploring and try and take the wrong turn all the way through and get a little bit lost, which used to be a little bit more thrilling when I didn't have my mobile phone, but now I can obviously pinpoint where I am. But it's just a wonderful, but I live right next to a mountain, and I can walk for about 4 or 5 hours and not see a road or a person. Plenty of animals, plenty, but no people. So that's what I do, and it's really good because I've found over the past few months I'm literally at my desk from 8:30 till 6, and I haven't moved. So it's really, not only is it enjoyable, but it's important.
So obviously, as you just suggested, Wales is a place that I love to spend time visiting. But for the benefit of those of our audience from further afield, what are some of the specific places that you like to visit, or that you'd recommend people from out of Wales to come and take a closer look at?
Well, I was thinking about this because obviously there is loads. I mean, it's the Gower Peninsula is, I mean, it's spectacular, and it's where I really fell in love with Wales. And I tell this story, and obviously it has to get longer and longer how long ago it was I was here, but it was, it was about 30 years ago, and I was in Llangennith, and I thought, hang on, this is amazing. This is so beautiful. So around the Gower Peninsula is very beautiful. We've got Llandilo, which is a beautiful little town. Carmarthen, which I really love, it's got a lovely church. You've got, as I say, Swansea Market, you've got Swansea Bay and Brecon. And these, I mean, you could just pitch up kind of where I am, and all of these are within an hour of each other. I went to Manabir the other day, I hope I pronounced that right, but that's in Pembrokeshire, and that was absolutely stunning, and that was an hour and 10 minutes away. So I'm really surrounded by some brilliant places, beautiful places.
I've seen a lot of great beaches in my life, and I was fortunate enough to spend a lot of time out in Asia, where obviously there's you know, lots of sort of sandy beaches and all the rest of it. But I think the best beach I've ever seen is, I'm probably going to mispronounce this, is it Rosilli Beach?
Yeah.
The Gower Peninsula, absolutely stunning beach, and half the time sort of pretty empty. So really delightful part of the world they live in. But
yeah.
Okay, so I thought perhaps before we sort of dig a little bit into sort of what you're going to be sort of sharing and talking about at the conference, maybe you could sort of give us a bit of a steer about the progression of your career, some of the key milestones, and perhaps some of the, I suppose, the key lessons you've learned at different stages.
Yeah, I really have had a really great, for me, career. I've had the best 20 years. The years before were fun, but I was mucking around quite a lot then. I mean, I'm not saying I hadn't stopped mucking around, but I was doing it a lot more then. So a real career change for me was about 20 years ago. I was a set designer, and I'd convinced my boss that this digital stuff seemed quite interesting and we really must get into it. And I went to a conference, and in that one day, I was just blown away by the opportunity. I was so excited about it. I thought, this is it. This is a new, this is obviously, it's new. It's a new way of working, but it's a new way of communicating. It's a leveler. Anyone could be part of this. I mean, unfortunately, it hasn't quite got to that point, but, you know, it was at the time. I thought, this is for everybody, and quoting someone quite famous. And so literally that day, I'd come up with the idea for a website. It was a travel review website, a peer-to-peer website, although I didn't know the word peer-to-peer at that point. But I was just so excited about the opportunities. And I think what happened was I'd been on lastminute.com. I've hardly touched the internet at all, to be fair, apart from emails before then. And I was on lastminute.com, bought a flight to Porto, and I didn't really know where Porto was, which is obviously my problem, not theirs. And I wanted more information. I was like, I'm so excited now. Booked a flight. I want to know about the hotels. I want to know about the restaurants. What's there? And at that time, it really was just a pure kind of buy your ticket site. And then at this conference, I thought, well, no, we've got a whole community, worldwide community of people who can share information. I think also I'd been on a holiday where I think some very famous travel writing book people had come to review something, and they kicked me out of my cabin because they wanted to give them the best one. And I thought, you know, this anyway. So obviously that was playing in the back of my mind. So at that day, I'd literally got the idea for a website for travel reviews. I'd nearly come up with the idea of the name, which was Travel Donkey. Went home to my partner, who's my husband, and said, look, I've got this idea for a website. And literally within the next couple of days, I'd approached 3 people I was at university with, web designers, and within 2 weeks or so, I quit my job, got a 10k loan, and there we were setting up a .com with very, very limited understanding about what that meant. But what it was at a time where there was so much help, there was so much support. I networked every night. I never had to buy tea or booze because I went out every night, flogging this idea about building communities and using the community's voices to shape opinions and help people with their travels and where to go. And so that was not just a complete change in career and something I wasn't actually anticipating at all, but actually something, the beginning of my digital career, and it was thrilling, and it was great.
At the time, I was a journalist writing about sort of a lot of these sort of .com startups, and the great thing was that no one really knew, you know, what the right approach was, and that therefore the pace of experimentation and learning and the desire to learn and share was just so pronounced. So it was a very exciting time. So I mean, since then, as your career has developed, I mean, I suppose, what have the role of mentors been for you, whether in terms of you receiving mentorship in those early days and subsequently, but also perhaps you paying it forward and sort of being a mentor in return?
I think I haven't had a specific mentor where I've said, hello, will you be my mentor? Could we spend some time together and do mentor type of things? Although I've done that with lots of people and I really thoroughly enjoy it. And I think anybody who wants a mentor and they see somebody and say, I want them to be the mentor, just contact them. There was something on Twitter the other day, just contact them. I can't imagine anybody would say no. But me personally, at those early days, there was all sorts of people that were inspiring. There was Martha Vane Fox, there was Sue Black, Helen Milner was coming in and kind of looking at digital inclusion, etc. And these were people that I got to either work with or become good friends with. And so I thoroughly respect them. But actually, from a mentoring or inspiration, I take it from people I work with. And I see it everywhere, and I see it at all levels and all grades, and I'm so thoroughly interested by people and what they do. I used to look at Twitter. There's so many people on Twitter I listen to, I'm interested in, I can get into a debate with. And I think that what is really quite wonderful is that we are sharing opinions, we are asking questions, and we're able to debate them. So not a particular mentor, people I really admire. Obviously there's RBG, who helps me when I'm starting to get really quite furious with what's going on, and I think, well, fury is not going to help me. Take a step back, think about RBG, keep cool. So no one in particular, but lots of people, and I'm very interested in, I mean, I started this 20 years ago. I'm as, if not more, interested in the whole scene and where it's going as I was then.
So I suppose fast forward to where we are today. So you've got a couple of hats on. Obviously, you've got the role in your capacity as chair of the Centre for Digital Public Services Wales, and obviously you're also involved a little bit in the work in Essex County Council. Do you want to talk a little bit about the scope of both of those roles?
Yeah, so I don't know when this is going out, but I'll be finishing up in Essex in a week or so's time, end of September. But I've been working with Essex County Council and building and pulling together a service transformation team. And essentially it was two separate teams before Christmas, and I came up with bringing them together. So it was like continuous improvement and business design and product and service design, a whole mix of people essentially that are all there to help the organisation design and build better services and make sure that their user journey is improved. So that, when I first started, one of the first things was, okay, what's our pipeline of work? What have we already got on? What's our narrative? How do we explain ourselves? How does anyone have a clue what we do? Because what is very interesting in Essex is that for any government organisation, it has a really well established service transformation team. And I think everybody, when I go into places, they always think someone's doing something better somewhere else because they don't necessarily kind of get that much chance to see what's going on. But it was a real pleasure to come in and see these professionals in this team. Really, really good people, and I've come from where I've come from in quite a few different departments, and I think, God, they would love to have this team. So the beginning was trying to kind of pull these professions together. But then obviously within a couple of months, COVID hit, and the portfolio that we currently had was changed quite significantly, and our time was then really spent on looking at, okay, how do we respond to COVID? How do we actually use our skills and capability to very quickly move some quite established and well-held thoughts about what can be digitised and what can't be digitised, when actually at that point we just had to digitise them. So there's things around, the registration of deaths. I think that there was some assumptions made of things that couldn't be done, and quite often those assumptions hadn't been challenged for years. And that's the thing is, okay, how do we move them forward? So in Essex, it was about getting things done quite quickly and digitising services. And so really, it's been a really brilliant, and it's the worst thing to say, because obviously of the scenario, the reasons why we're at this point, but we've been able to really move things along. We've really been able to demonstrate using service design, continuous improvement, and all those skills that we were doing before, but they became, people saw them as a kind of critical and a good way of moving things on and delivering services. So that's been really fantastic thing for me to do. We've now got a superb, proper, permanent head of service come in, and have been able to attract some very, very good people as we kind of move from quite in some cases there's a consultancy model to perm people. So really has been an excellent opportunity to be at such a good local authority. And I know it's your local authority and you're asking me about it, getting the skinny on it.
I know, I love it. So I'm very, very pleased vicariously that the people I pay some of my council tax to are doing good things with it. I mean, it's certainly lovely to hear how you've been able to make such an impact in such a short period of time. But how was that affected by obviously the challenge of working remotely and having to collaborate virtually with the team?
Well, I think the team were already doing good stuff before I came in. It just had to accelerate during the COVID period, and we kind of had to get smarter and be more collaborative than we've ever been before. But that was also the case from the whole organisation. So what has been, I'm coming reflecting on it a bit myself because I'm going next week, but it's actually felt that we have been a lot closer than I think if we've been in the office. So, for example, the leadership team in service transformation, we meet at least twice a day, and we kind of discuss what's going on, what's coming in. I think perhaps slightly less with a wider team, but we do make sure we have kind of regular check-ins. I mean, this has been hugely important, the whole wellness bit around the COVID. We've been working really, really hard. And that's something we actually need to address because that's not going to be sustainable. Just because we're digitising things means we're not, it doesn't mean to say we're transforming things, and that's really where we need to be going. And there is a big programme called Ways of Working Essex to do that. But it's the working from home. I suppose from our team, we were quite used to doing at least 1 or 2 days a week from home. So it wasn't such a complete change. But for some people, this was the first time they had obviously ever wanted or needed or desired to do that. But what has been really interesting is there was a huge response that people have. We did a survey for the whole of the county council. A huge majority of people want to continue working this way. So, and this is why, where I think Essex is a really great leader and leadership team, and they've very quickly started to move to, okay, we need to look at ways of working, we need to look at the way we do things, we need to say not digitise or slightly change, but totally transform, and what does that look like? We also did a big study around digital remote working, the psychological effects that was commissioned by the chief exec, Gavin, because we need to kind of look at what's the long-term effects of people working from home and how do we accommodate them. And I think we're kind of looking at a hybrid model of being able to work from home more, but also have the opportunity to collaborate and be in an office space as well. So I would say that I think my team, and I think Essex has coped really, really well. And now is a point to say, okay, how do we make this a long-term, the new norm?
We almost got through the podcast without someone saying the new normal. But
oh no, damn!
That is podcast bingo. That is. But let's see what else we can come up with.
I'll think of some more. But you want to find out about Wales? Shall I talk about my yeah? So. Yeah. So last year I ran a discovery for Welsh Government that was in response to a paper that was commissioned and written by Lee Waters, who got together who's a deputy minister, who got together a team of experts, and I was one of them, to really quite quickly look at the state of digital in Wales. The report was, there's good stuff going on, but there's not enough going on. We really need to up our game with regards to designing digital services in the public sector, the Welsh public sector. So the response to that was I was asked by another minister to come in and run a discovery and say, okay, we've got this report, prove it, evidence it. What is the problem? It's the right thing to do, and obviously it's, in discovery, what are the needs, what are the problems, what we're looking at. So I then spent with a small team, we looked at speaking to not the whole of, because that would be crackers, but representatives from the Welsh public sector, and that include local authority and health and police and all the people in that Welsh public sector, to understand what their barriers were. Why isn't Wales why don't we have kind of user researchers and product owners and those types of roles within our organisations? Why are we not designing why are we not working in an agile way? So we then did a consultation or a questionnaire survey to really understand and get the data about where the barriers were, what the problems were, so we can start to look at where do we need to concentrate and where do we need to fix it. And the biggest thing that came out across over 200 responses, and there were good responses, there was quite a lot of questions in there, was leadership. I mean, I'm not being an arse, I'm going to say it. But, you know, I've been in this for such a long time. I kind of could preempt what was going to come back because I'd seen it in other places that I'd worked in. But, you know, it's important to actually really have the evidence. And it was those things that leadership are barriers, leadership are not supportive, they don't understand it, and what they don't understand, they block. It was things like digital skills, language. What do you even mean by digital to start off with? And then I don't think we have these skills. And we did a bit of an audit of the type of skills that were across the Welsh public sector, and things like cyber roles and as I say, so content designers and all those sorts of, they just really didn't feature in their, either in their job roles that they had now or any future kind of workforce planning, which is obviously a huge concern and a huge problem. And so we've prepared a paper. We said we need to do something. We need to go into alpha phase, and we need to do something about this. We need to do it pretty sharpish. We then went to start the alpha. But obviously COVID hit, but that didn't stop things, but actually what it has done is kind of really put a different lens on the fact that, well, this needs to be a business. We need to kind of get this up and running. So we will run and do the alpha work, but at the same time, concurrently, we're running getting a business case together to a 3 to 5 year plan of how we can help and support the design and delivery of digital services. Along with, we've got a CDO, Chief Digital Officer at Welsh Government. We've got a new CDO coming in for local government in Wales, and we'll be looking for
Great. Sam Hill from Birmingham, right?
Sam Hall, yeah, we're super lucky. We've got Glyn Jones in Welsh Government, and we're going out for the health one. So we've got some really tip-top people in the mix here. But my role, as I say, I run the discovery, but now there's a team that's going to actually do the kind of delivery, etc. I'm the chair, so essentially that's kind of a couple of days a month. Hasn't quite worked out like a couple of days a month, but that would be the expectation. So I report into Lee Waters, who wants to know what we're doing and are we meeting our remit letter. But also he's hugely involved and enthusiastic about Digital Wales. And one thing we will be doing with those CDOs is looking at a kind of a plan for Wales, because we are small enough to be able to kind of really join together, to really collaborate and really get things done together.
So I mean, looking down the track, say your timeline of say 3 to 5 years, what sort of vision for success do you have for the centre?
So I think that at the moment we've got some what we call expert squads, and it's a bit like the GDS model when we actually kind of look at an exemplar and say, okay, let's demonstrate and show how working in multidisciplinary teams, how using experts from the supplier market and also the public sector workers working together can come up with what's the problem we're trying to solve, and work together on trying to create that. So I would want to see in the next 3 to 5 years, there's far more collaboration, not just across the Welsh public sector, but also really using the supplier market and not being scared of it, but actually saying, okay, we don't have these skills at the moment, we need to bring them in. So really kind of working together with the supplier market. But the 3 to 5 years, okay, how do we really start to embed and build digital skills and capability in the Welsh public sector? And another part of the work that we're doing is to look at a digital skills academy. And we're already going to, in the next couple of weeks, and start running some courses for all different levels in the 3 local authorities that are participating in the kind of squad piece of work, and going through kind of what does it mean by digital and agile and all that. So we really need to start to build up our digital skills and capability. So 3 to 5 years, we have an understanding of it, we have a acceptance of it, and we have a passion for it to do things and modernise not just the way we deliver services, but end-to-end of our organisations, because they're going to need to be in a shape that they can be part of the whole service design. And I think bringing in service design and the understanding of what you mean by service design across the Welsh public sector is going to be absolutely critical, because we've got to move away from things get done in IT and then they're chucked over the fence, and then the ops team go, oh, I don't know how to run that, and then the user goes, oh, I didn't want that, and so you've wasted loads of money. We really need to look at how do we, when we start looking at the services, we look at them together, we collaborate. in the next 3 to 5 years, I want us to kind of really start to work in a more consistent way, so that we have design standards, we have tech standards, so our services can be interoperable, so that basically all of this points to the user doesn't want to waste their time mucking around and getting upset by public services, trying to work them out. They need to come in, do something, get out and do something more important and more interesting. So in 3 to 5 years, it will take a long time, but it's establishing standards, the way we design and deliver services, really looking at the way those services run across multiple organisations, and make sure we're kind of making the links, that there is a continuous journey for the resident or the customer. It doesn't get broken, and that we are smart about how we spend our money, on technology, and being and I don't want to use intelligent customer because that might be a bingo word, but being better customers, really understanding our requirements. And I think that's one of the most important things. What is it we need based on what evidence, and how can we have a good, equal and smart conversation with our suppliers? I'm a massive fan of spend control, which might sound a little bit, have you not got anything else to think about? But because I stay in the public sector, because I love it. I want it to be better, and I want it to stop wasting money and stop upsetting people. I really do believe that we should be much better in how we spend our money, and the work that was done sort of years ago in GDS around sort of spend controls has been, obviously, for the Francis Maud, hugely important, saved huge amounts of money. There was resistance, obviously, at the beginning, and what was interesting when we did the survey last year, spend control came in quite high about what they would want to see the centre do. So I think people have kind of got a bit sick of the waste of money, and I know that there are individuals and there are kind of historical reasons why one organisation won't work with the other, but I think we need to kind of break through that. I don't know if we go in and go like, right, okay, we're going to stop any spend. I don't think that's going to be the right way of doing it. I think we need to demonstrate by why working together and sharing this type of information about upcoming spend and pipeline of work, etc., is beneficial for all.
So that's something, obviously, that we'll be covering in some length in a number of sessions at the conference, and you're obviously joining the session focused on Agile Government. What does that mean for you? What's your particular sort of animating interest in all things Agile?
By continuously on the quest to stop using the word Agile, I think. It doesn't help, and I go into so many organisations, and it's really important to articulate what that actually means and unpack it and what it means for them. So to work in an agile way, to be able to move and make decisions quickly, that's all fine, but I think ultimately what we're talking about for agile government, and I will say this, is one, we need to just very quickly remind ourselves what we're here to do in government. We're here to do many things, but really importantly, deliver good services and not be a business of government. So we shape our organisations to make sure that our main focus is making sure we spend our money properly. It's not our focus should be, are we delivering really good services? So my interest is having really good government, and doesn't need to be excellent, doesn't need to be brilliant, but also we don't want it to be bad either. And we want to get to a point where we don't actually talk about it at all, because we're just doing services and we're just kind of getting on with them, and they've not been bad, and they've not been, oh, this has been the best experience of my life, because I don't think that's where government needs to get to. You just need to be able to do what you need to do. And my interest around this is, in order to do that, you do need to have the whole organisation involved and line up, and the leadership ready and understanding that in order to deliver those services, they're all a part of it. The people side, the finance side, the operational side, the kind of front-end developers and user design and user experience are all part of that mix. And I think that is still something we're not in the right shape in most organisations, because we're still slightly focused and heavily looking at the finance side as opposed to the people side. And it's quite interesting, we kind of got in this situation because I've never met anybody in all my time that hates people, you know, but somehow we've kind of got ourselves into this bit of a groove where we're not focusing and aligning ourselves and shaping the business to really deliver excellent public services.
Do you think that in a strange way that the need for public sector organisations to pull together both internally but also between organisations in response to COVID is likely to have a sort of positive long-term impact about the way we're able to sort of iterate service development in future?
Yeah, I think it's been demonstrated without a doubt. So, for example, in Essex, we very quickly became hugely collaborative. I'm not saying we weren't before. Boundaries, as in really physical boundaries, were removed. It was kind of like, this is what we need to do, and we need to get together, and we need to do it together quite quickly. But everyone was pointing in the same direction, you know, and that was why things were getting done really well and really quickly. So, kind of to go back to what we said before, so we did things at that point. But the really hard bit now is to redesign our organisations to make sure that's the norm and that's the way we work, because people can very quickly bounce back to how they were before, unless there's kind of some structures, some governance in place to say, no, actually, if we look at how we met that task or how we resolved that, this is the things that we did, and now we're going to put those in place, and that's kind of the governance and the process that we're going to put in place. I think that's where we have to really fundamentally transform, you know, our organisations to do that. It's not going to be enough just to rely on people's goodwill to do it sort of going forward.
So I think we're coming up to the end of our half hour, but just perhaps quickly at the end, it would be great if you could add to I suppose, the cerebral glamour of the podcast by recommending a book, a video, a podcast, one or all of the above that you'd recommend to attendees to the conference.
So around about the beginning of lockdown, I participated in an online auction for the Swansea asylum seekers, which is SAS, SAWS.Wales. And I was lucky enough to win a big pile of books. And great. So this big pile of books arrived. And they're all books about refugees in Wales and their experience. But it's not just about their experience that they've found and how Wales has welcomed them and how they've kind of adjusted to or started to live in Wales, but also that they're the background and where they've come from. And I'm probably about 3/4 of the way through. They're just so interesting and so enriching, and they're obviously quite sort of devastating, but they're also quite hopeful and quite powerful. And they're not, you know, literary classics, but they're real, you know, solid stories. And there's things in there, there's poems, there's all sorts of things. And it's by Hafan, I think it's Hafan in Welsh, I don't know, Hafan Press, available on the SAS.Wales website. And it's just just fascinating, and just a whole spectrum of feelings and emotions. But you know, there's some really positive stuff in there as well.
The life experience in their stories sort of puts me moving from one company and one office to the next into some sort of perspective, I'm sure. But I think that's a really good recommendation. I got a recommendation the other day from Miranda from the Smart London Board, which is about exposing data bias in a world designed by men. So Invisible Women, it's called. Yeah. I think that's a really sort of interesting book. So I'm looking forward to getting my teeth into that. But anyway, thanks so much.
That, and it makes you quite angry, actually.
Really?
It's quite, you have to, yeah, because it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. I've got it a while ago, and you just can't believe it. And then you just kind of, you have to like chill out and go, okay, these are problems. How do we fix it? But it's a fascinating book.
Fantastic. Well, I'm glad that's next in my pile of books to read. So great. Well, Sally, it's been a real pleasure having you on the show. Can't say enough, but excited to have you joining us for the conference. and thanks again.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it. Thanks.
There you go. Sally enjoyed every second of her time in the virtual spotlight, and you'll get a chance to learn more about her current work in our session on Agile Government at 11 AM GMT on 18th November at GovX Digital Conference. Feedback from the last episode was that I was being too coy regarding our November conference. So here goes. GovX Digital is the biggest public sector transformation conference in the country, and possibly many other countries, with 130 speakers from local, central government from 25 countries. We just confirmed a speaker this week from Japan, so this really is a global showcase of government excellence, bringing together our UK public sector audience with its international counterparts. If you haven't got yourself a ticket yet, then go to the link in the show notes and get yourself a pass. They're very reasonably priced, free, but only if you work in the public sector. So now that I've made the marketing director happy, I can sign off and get back to my day job. I've been James Smith. You've been great. I look forward to showing off another shirt in the next episode of the GovX Show.